Hi guys. Tonight we drift back farther back than your lungs feel comfortable, imagining into a world where night is not a gentle curtain but a heavy animal pressing in on all sides. You stand on an ancient plain where the air tastes of dust and distant storms, and the sky above you stretches wider than anything you've ever seen. There are no cities, no lights, no soft electric hum, just the rhythm of your own breath and the rustle of tall, dry grasses, brushing your legs like cautious fingers. It's beautiful, yes, but you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening right now, tell me where you are in the world and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, because the darkness of early Earth folds around you like a cold blanket, and you begin to move slowly, quietly, as if any sudden sound might summon something with sharper teeth than you'd prefer to meet tonight. The ground beneath your feet is uneven, a patchwork of hardened mud and scattered stones warmed slightly by the day's sun. That warmth is fading already, slipping through your fingers with each passing breath, and you pull your thin animal hide wrap closer, though it barely helps. The wind sighs across the plain, carrying the faint smell of distant rain and the musk of herds you can't yet see. Up ahead, shadows drift in loose clusters, your group, your kin, your companions in this long wandering life. They move with a rhythm born from years of following the same paths, reading the earth as if it speaks a language most modern humans have forgotten. You follow them instinctively, feeling the presence of something ancient settling into your bones. Here, in this moment, you're walking the same landscape that Homo erectus once crossed somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million years ago, depending on which stretch of the vast timeline you choose. A mainstream historical fact anchors you. Homo erectus was the first of your ancestors to spread widely beyond Africa, journeying across territories that would later become the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. But right now, none of that future geography matters. The land is simply land, endless and raw. What does matter is the deepening cold. Even on warm days, nighttime can fall like a trap, clamping down with a chill sharp enough to numb fingertips. You feel it now, the kind of cold that makes your muscles tighten and your breath turn shallow. And as you shiver, it's easy to understand why early humans needed something more than courage to get through nights like this. There's a quiet scratching at the edge of your hearing, a soft scuttling in the grass. You turn your head, muscles tense, but the sound slips away again. Could be nothing, could be something small. But you already know predators lurk in this darkness: hyenas with bone-crushing jaws, lions that move without a sound, saber-toothed cats whose patience could stretch longer than your courage. And while fire will one day hold many of those shadows at bay, tonight you don't have that luxury yet. Not this early in the story. Your foot catches on a root and you stumble forward, steadying yourself with a quick breath. The ground smells faintly of earth baked and cracked by heat, then cooled too quickly by nightfall. You crouch and press your palm to it, feeling the subtle warmth that clings stubbornly to the soil. This is your only comfort right now, residual heat that nature gives freely and then takes away. A quirky, fringe tidbit drifts into your thoughts one scholars still side-eye each other about. Some researchers have proposed that early human groups might have occasionally used naturally warmed volcanic stones or geothermal vents to sleep near, treating them like primitive heated floors long before anyone dreamt of plumbing. It's not a mainstream theory, but, well, you wouldn't mind a volcanic vent right now. Anything warm. Anything that keeps the night from creeping all the way into your bones. Your group continues forward, forming a loose semicircle as they approach a cluster of boulders. The rocks rise out of the ground like the ribs of the earth, sharp and angled, offering shelter from at least one direction. You settle behind them and feel the wind break slightly, turning from a cutting force into a tolerable breeze. It's not comfort, exactly, but it's something. Somewhere above, a bird calls out a low, throaty croak that echoes off the rocks. You tilt your head. Maybe an early species of owl, Maybe something related, but long gone now. The stars spread overhead, dizzyingly bright. You're not used to seeing them this way, without the haze of cities, without screens, without artificial light. They feel heavier, closer, like a ceiling of tiny fires you can't reach. Someone from your group drops a bundle of dry grass and roots beside you. Not for burning, not yet. Just bedding, maybe. Some of it crackles softly as it settles. A child you don't know curls beside their mother, nestling into the faint, shared warmth of bodies huddled close together. You can almost feel the trust built into those gestures, the soft exhale of safety in numbers. Historians still argue whether these early humans slept in tight clusters for warmth or spread out loosely to reduce parasite spread. But on a night like this, the closeness seems like the only reasonable choice. You draw your knees toward your chest and rest your chin against them. The cold gnaws softly at your ears, but you're adjusting. You always do. Humans are astonishingly adaptable, something Homo erectus embodied long before anyone carved symbols or told full stories. You listen to the rustle of grass as it waves in the wind and try to match your breathing to its rhythm. Inhale, long, slow. Exhale, softer still. The night seems less hostile when you move with it. And even though danger circles the edges of your awareness, you also sense the quiet magnificence of being here, on this ancient ground, under this sprawling sky, sharing the same kind of fear and awe your ancestors felt. The darkness around you becomes more familiar, more like a companion than a threat, and as you settle in, you notice something else too, the faintest glimmer along the horizon, a pulse of light, a flicker. For now, it's distant, harmless. But soon, that flicker will reshape everything, your nights, your hunts, your winters, your future. It's a promise your ancestors don't yet understand, but you do. You close your eyes to the cold, to the wind, to the weight of the sky, letting the ancient world breathe around you. You wake slowly, still curled against the rough ground, and for a moment you cannot tell where your own breath ends and the pale morning mist begins. The night has passed, thin and restless, and the sky above you is shifting from deep blue to a muted grey that promises another long day of walking. You stretch your legs, feeling the stiffness in your joints, and then you rise, brushing bits of dry grass from your skin. The air is cool but no longer biting, and the first thin rays of light give you just enough direction to keep moving with your group of wandering ancestors. You fall into step behind them as they begin to move across the plain. Their footsteps leave a faint trail in the soft soil, almost like an idea being written before the wind erases it. The pace is steady, measured, familiar. These people walk more than they do anything else. Homo erectus was a tireless traveler, and the landscape itself seems shaped by their persistence. A mainstream historical fact settles into your thoughts. Early evidence shows that Homo erectus walked upright with a long stride similar to your own, supported by a body built for endurance. They were not sprinters. They were long-distance survivors. You breathe in the scent of grass warmed by the first hints of sun and notice a soft rustling at your side. Small antelope-like animals move away from your group in gentle leaps, their heads flicking nervously, their slender legs disappearing into the taller grass. Animals like these are both a source of hope and a nagging reminder of hunger. They dash too quickly to catch without planning and tools, but their presence means that water and vegetation are not far. Your group moves toward the faint sound of trickling water. The sound is subtle, but you begin to notice it as you listen closely. You push through a cluster of thorny bushes and find a narrow stream cutting through the dirt like a thin silver thread. You crouch and dip your hands into it. The water is cold, and when you bring it to your lips, it tastes of minerals and mud, but it is clean enough, and it satisfies the dryness in your mouth. Across the stream you see footprints, fresh ones. They are not human. They look like the deep oval prints of a large cat. Your chest tightens a little as you study them. They are wide, nearly the width of your hand, and the claws did not leave marks, which means the claws were sheathed. which means a predator that prefers stealth. You straighten slowly and look to your group, though no one seems particularly alarmed. Perhaps they crossed paths with this animal hours ago. Perhaps it is still close. Historians still debate whether Homo erectus understood animal tracking with any sophistication, but you can feel how alert your senses become when danger is close. It seems instinctive, automatic. You continue onward, the land changing beneath your feet with each step. The soft grasses become patches of drier, harder soil. The wind grows stronger, sweeping across the plain as if trying to herd you in a certain direction. The sky above you darkens slightly with thickening clouds that drift like heavy animals overhead. You pull your wrap closer around your shoulders, remembering the cold of last night far too clearly. You fall into a rhythm. Step, breath, step, breath. The sound of your own feet begins to settle your nerves. The early humans around you do not speak in the way you expect. Their voices are low, rough, almost humming. Communication flows through gestures, glances, small vocalizations that carry meaning you somehow understand. You watch one of them gesture toward the mountains far in the distance. It is a simple movement, but you understand there might be shelter there, shade, perhaps caves, perhaps safer nights. A quirky fringe tidbit floats to mind, something suggested by a few researchers. Some believe that wandering groups like this sometimes followed the movement of elephants, not just for scavenging opportunities, but because elephants often knew paths to water sources better than humans. You imagine how strange it would feel to follow giant animals like silent guides, watching their slow, deliberate steps carve a path through the wilderness. It sounds unlikely, yet the idea makes something in your imagination spark. The ground slopes gently upward as you walk, and the wind becomes even colder. You place your hand on your chest, steadying your breathing as you continue the climb. The early humans around you move confidently here. Their bodies are lean and strong. Their long legs carry them without hesitation. You feel your own steps mirror theirs, becoming steadier, more deliberate. You pass a cluster of tall rocks, their sides smooth and pale, shaped by thousands of years of erosion. The rocks hum faintly as the wind slices around them. The sound is oddly comforting. It reminds you that nature has many voices, and not all of them intend to frighten you. You trail your fingers along the stone as you walk. It feels cool, permanent. You imagine how many generations of early humans touched stone like this. How many stories began in places just like this one? Then you hear a sharp cry from up ahead. Your group slows. A hunter from the front gestures toward a distant line of trees. You squint, trying to see what caught his attention. At first you see nothing but shifting leaves. Then you see movement. Not the soft, quick motion of antelope. Something larger, bulkier. Perhaps a bison-like animal. Or perhaps something dangerous. Your heart thuds once, then again. You brace yourself before realizing the group is not preparing to attack or defend. They are simply watching, observing the landscape in the way their survival depends on. You let out a breath you did not notice you were holding. You walk again. The sky breaks open slightly, letting sunlight spill through the clouds in soft golden sheets. The warmth on your skin is gentle, almost fragile, but it feels like a promise. You move toward it instinctively, chasing the light as if it might lead you to something better. By midday, the plain widens and becomes a vast stretch of open land dotted with scattered trees. The air is warmer but still carries the memory of cold nights. You understand now why your ancestors kept moving. They were not aimless. They were following patterns in the land, searching for balance between heat and cold, danger and safety, scarcity and abundance. You pause and look back over the path you have taken. Your footprints are faint, almost gone already. But your presence here feels real, heavy, as if you have stepped into a story carved into the earth long before memory existed. Your group compacts slightly as you continue forward, shoulders near shoulders, steps matching steps. You feel the pull of belonging, a quiet strength that spreads through your chest. You are not alone out here. You share the struggle with others who breathe, think, fear, and adapt just as you do. You walk into the afternoon light, feeling the journey reshape you one step at a time. You move slowly into the late afternoon, and the light around you begins to soften, turning the landscape into a gentle wash of gold and dust. The warmth that pressed against your skin only an hour ago is slipping away, fading like a memory you cannot hold on to. You feel the familiar tightening in your shoulders as the first hints of evening cold settle in. The shifting weather is not simply unpleasant. It teaches you something that early humans learned painfully well. Every sunset brings a new challenge. Your group pauses on a small rise overlooking a shallow valley below. The grasses ripple like water under the wind, and you shiver as a chill works its way along your neck. The cold returns with the same insistence every night. It is a visitor you cannot ignore. You crouch beside a low bush to steady your breath, and as you watch the sky darken, you begin to understand why your ancestors had to adapt in ways that reshaped their entire existence. According to many archaeologists, climates during the life of Homo erectus fluctuated dramatically, swinging between warm seasons and harsh cold intervals that could strip the land bare. You sense that struggle in the air now. The wind grows sharper, like thin blades brushing your cheeks. You pull your wrap close, even though the material barely traps heat. Early humans had clothing far more rudimentary than anything you would consider comfortable, but their endurance was astonishing. A faint rustling behind you draws your attention. You turn slowly and see a few members of your group gathering dead branches, brittle shrubs, and the fallen remnants of last season's growth. They bundle it across their arms, clutching it as if it might be useful later, though you know fire is not yet fully under their command. Still, collecting brush is a habit learned from countless generations of watching nature shift around them. It is preparation, instinctive, and half-formed. You join them, reaching for a branch snapped clean by the wind. Its surface feels dry and splintered under your fingertips. As you lift it, the scent of old wood drifts up. It is faint but comforting in a way you cannot fully explain. The simple act of gathering reminds you that survival is not only about reacting to danger, but anticipating discomfort before it becomes unbearable. Someone whistles softly, a sharp, rising sound that draws everyone closer. You step toward the center of the group, standing shoulder to shoulder as they peer ahead. Down in the shallow valley, patches of earth appear white and pale, like frost or leftover salt. You step closer to the edge of the hill and look again. It is frost. Thin, delicate crystals clinging to the soil where the day's warmth could not reach. You inhale slowly. The cold is settling earlier today than yesterday. Your breath forms a faint cloud in front of your face. You run your thumb along your own forearm and feel a prickling sensation as tiny bumps rise on your skin. The night ahead will be unforgiving. One idea suggested by certain paleoanthropologists enters your mind. Winter was perhaps the greatest teacher of early humans. It forced innovation, cooperation, and sharper awareness. You can almost feel that lesson playing out in real time as your group surveys the widening stretch of frozen ground below. The first gust of night air sweeps up the rise, carrying with it a smell like wet stone and dying leaves. You brace yourself. The temperature drops with startling speed. Shadows lengthen around your group, as if pulled toward the icy patches in the valley. A tall member of your group grunts and gestures toward a cluster of trees in the distance. You all begin walking toward them. Your steps crunch softly on the earth as you descend the slope. The wind gnaws at your ears, and you bow your head slightly to protect your face from the cold. It is a long, slow trek, and with every step you feel the air grow heavier, denser, and far colder than before. Near the base of the hill, the group spreads out again. Some search for edible roots in the softer patches of soil, scraping with simple stone flakes. Others scout the perimeter, watching for predators that might use the dimming light to approach silently. It is not paranoia, it is necessity. Even a small lapse in vigilance could mean being taken by a stalking cat, a lurking hyena, or some other creature hungry enough to risk approaching a group of humans. You turn your attention to the sky. The clouds have thickened, smothering the last warmth of day. The air feels heavy, damp, as though winter is breathing directly onto your skin. You close your eyes against the sting of wind and imagine how ancient humans must have looked for patterns long before language allowed them to name those patterns. Darkening clouds, sudden silence from animals, sharp, rising wind, all of them telling a story of the cold to come. A less commonly mentioned anthropological proposal crosses your mind. Some researchers have suggested that early humans might have huddled close to sun-warmed stones after sunset, using the rocks as temporary heat sources before the night fully claimed them. As you pass a large boulder now, you place your palm against it. It holds the last traces of the day's heat, faint and fleeting but still real. You find yourself lingering there for a heartbeat longer than you intended. Night begins to settle fully. Darkness creeps across the land like ink spreading over parchment. The shadows deepen. The wind sharpens further until your eyes water. The temperature falls with a steadiness that feels almost purposeful. Your breath comes out in thin, white wisps now, vanishing instantly. The group begins searching for a place to shelter. You move among them, feeling the urgency in each step. You pass between trees whose branches rattle softly, clacking like wooden fingers tapping together. The smell of bark and damp earth surrounds you. You feel the pressure of the moment building inside your chest. One of the older members of the group finds a shallow depression beneath a leaning tree whose roots twist like ancient ropes around the earth. It is far from perfect, but it blocks at least one direction of the wind. The group moves toward it and begins clearing space. You kneel, brushing aside debris, forming a crude nest of dry grass. As the last traces of light fade, the cold intensifies. The air bites. Your fingers stiffen. You curl your body, pulling your knees close. The group gathers tightly, sharing whatever warmth bodies can provide. Before settling completely, you glance upward again. The stars are emerging, bright and sharp against the cold sky. Their stillness contrasts with the shivering tension in your muscles. In this moment, you understand how night could feel both breathtaking and terrifying to your ancestors. It is a sky full of cold fire and unreachable light. One more thought drifts in, something researchers occasionally propose. Early humans may have used simple rhythmic sounds or comforting murmurs during cold nights to steady one another's nerves, an echo of lullabies long before words existed. As you listen to the quiet hums and low breaths around you, that possibility feels almost certain. You close your eyes slowly while the night settles around your group like a vast, silent predator. The cold creeps deeper, but you are not alone. You are surrounded by others who feel the same chill, the same fear, the same determination. And in this shared struggle, a quiet strength begins to grow, a strength that will one day change everything. You wake before dawn because a sudden crack splits the silence. It is not near you. It rolls across the plains like the sky itself has snapped in two. You jolt upright, your breath sharp in your throat, your body still stiff from the cold night. The group around you stirs with low murmurs, eyes half open, bodies shivering from the layer of frost forming along their hair and shoulders. You sit perfectly still for a moment, listening. There it is again, a rumble, a deep, rolling sound that shakes the air. You rise slowly and push through a thin curtain of branches to look toward the horizon. The sky is still dark, streaked with early shades of purple and blue. But beyond the distant hill, flashes of light bloom briefly, then vanish, lightning, sharp and blinding. Each flash reveals the silhouette of the land with a cold, ghostly brightness. You inhale, feeling a tremor of surprise. Storms like this are dangerous, yet they bring something that will change everything about the way you and your ancestors survive. You take a few steps forward, squinting at the sky as another bolt tears downward, illuminating the clouds with a frightening beauty. According to widely accepted research, dry lightning storms were likely the earliest source of natural wildfires that Homo erectus encountered. You feel the truth of that idea as the next flash streaks down and touches the ground somewhere beyond your sight. For a moment, the sky glows. Then darkness returns, heavier than before. Your group gathers behind you. They stand shoulder to shoulder, eyes fixed on the direction of the lightning. Some tilt their heads in interest, others in caution. No one speaks. The unspoken understanding is simple. Where lightning strikes, fire soon follows. A low rumble builds again, this one closer. You strain your ears, waiting. A moment later, the wind shifts. It comes from the direction of the storm, carrying a faint scent that makes your heart quicken. Something dry and sharp. Something warm despite the cold air. It smells like burning vegetation, charred earth, distant smoke. You glance at your companions and see the same spark of recognition in their eyes. There is no fear, not yet, only curiosity. Curiosity mixed with a cautious, instinctive pull toward warmth that could mean survival. You begin walking toward the distant smell, leaving the shallow shelter behind. The group follows quietly, feet brushing against stiff, frosted grass. The ground slopes downward. Frost crunches under your toes. The air smells stronger as you walk. Smoke is becoming more distinct now. You keep your pace carefully measured. Too fast, and you risk stepping into danger without seeing it. Too slow, and you lose the fleeting warmth carried by the wind. A flicker catches your eye, a small, pulsing glow in the valley ahead. You narrow your gaze. Another glow appears beside it, then another. You realize they are reflections. Fire is dancing somewhere beyond a stand of low trees. You move closer. The frost melts under your feet as the temperature rises. The smell thickens into something unmistakable. Burning brush, heated sap, smoke drifting through the branches like a thin mist. The edges of the trees glow. As you step between them, you feel the heat brush your skin for the first time. It is soft at first, then stronger, deep enough that it seems to reach under your cold skin and touch bone. You exhale in relief, letting the warmth roll through your muscles. Before you lies a scene that feels both terrifying and mesmerizing. A branch lies split on the ground, flames clinging to it like bright insects dancing along its surface. The grass around it has blackened. A few patches still smolder, sending tiny spirals of smoke into the air. The lightning must have struck here only moments before. Your group halts. No one steps closer. Fire is still new to them, unpredictable and loud. It crackles sharply, sending sparks upward. The flames twist and reach as if hungry. Your heart pounds, but not from fear, from awe. This is light in a world of darkness. This is heat in a world of cold. You crouch slowly, keeping your distance. You study the flames, watching them move. The heat wavers before your eyes. It feels alive. It breathes. It consumes. Your companions hover behind you, unsure whether to approach. One of the younger members takes a hesitant step forward. He stretches his hand toward the heat, then pulls it back with a startled sound, when a burst of crackle leaps from the burning grass. Everyone takes a breath, both fearful and enchanted. A theory embraced by many anthropologists suggests that early humans may have first used fire, not by creating it themselves, but by harvesting the remains of natural wildfires. You see the logic of that here. The storm has gifted you something powerful, something your cold bones desperately need. You move closer, inch by inch. The flames reflect in your eyes like shining threads. You hold your hands toward the warmth until your skin tingles. It feels like stepping into sunlight after a long winter. Behind you, the group whispers in soft, uncertain tones. Their bodies lean instinctively toward the fire. Hunger, cold, fatigue, and curiosity mix inside them like a quiet storm of their own. Suddenly, another crack echoes from a nearby tree as a weakened branch falls and bursts into flame upon landing. You flinch backward, but your heart continues to race with fascination rather than panic. The fire spreads along the dry bark, moving with quick, purposeful life. There is a gentle tug inside your mind, a strange thread of understanding forming before words even exist. Fire is dangerous, yet it offers something precious: heat, protection, light. Even cooked food once your ancestors learned to use it. You cannot name these concepts, but your body senses their importance. Another idea often floated by researchers comes to you now. Some suggest that early humans may have watched animals react to fire before they dared approach it themselves. You glance around and notice birds circling above the smoke. Small scavengers wait at the edges of the burned patch, ready to search for insects fleeing the heat. Even predators sometimes linger at the perimeter after a wildfire, using the clearing to hunt. Perhaps your ancestors learned courage from watching these creatures. Or perhaps they learned caution. Your attention returns to the flames. A burning branch rolls slightly, sending sparks into the air. You notice something important. Beneath the outer flames, glowing red embers pulse gently. They seem more stable, more controllable. Your instincts pull toward them. Embers can be carried. Embers can be saved. You pick up a long stick, hesitating for a heartbeat before inching it toward the fire. Heat washes over your hand. You place the end near the glowing coals, letting it absorb warmth. You do not know why you are doing it, only that it feels right. Your group watches closely. The moment feels suspended, like a breath held by the earth itself. You lift the stick. It glows faintly at the tip. Not enough to burn, but enough to hold heat for a short time. You exhale slowly. You imagine walking through the night with even a small shard of warmth. The thought fills you with something close to hope. You step back, still holding the warm stick, while the fire crackles behind you. The dawn light finally breaks across the horizon. The sky turns soft grey and pale rose. The cold begins to retreat. For the first time, you feel a shift inside you. Fire is no longer only a distant force of nature. It is something your ancestors can approach, study, maybe even claim if they are brave enough. You look at the glowing horizon and clutch the stick gently. You understand that this single moment will echo through tens of thousands of generations. You have just witnessed the beginning of a bond that will reshape humanity. You stand with the warm stick in your hand, its tip faintly glowing like a quiet heartbeat. The fire behind you crackles and sighs, sending thin ribbons of smoke into the morning air. Your group gathers close, forming a loose ring around the fading blaze. Their breaths mix with the cold, creating small clouds that drift upward. The storm has passed, yet the world still carries a damp heaviness, as if the earth remembers every flash of lightning that struck it. You lift the stick slightly, watching the ember glow dim, then brighten again when a soft breeze touches it. The warmth is fragile. It will fade if you do nothing. But the idea forming in your mind is simple and astonishing. If the ember can be protected, perhaps it can be carried. And if it can be carried, perhaps warmth does not have to disappear when the fire dies. A member of your group steps closer, their face illuminated by the last flickering tongues of the wildfire. They make a low sound, something between a hum and a questioning grunt. You show them the glowing tip of your stick. They lean in, squinting, then extend their hand cautiously toward the warmth. When the heat brushes their skin, they pull back with a gasp. Not from pain, from wonder. A well-supported idea among specialists suggests that Homo erectus likely learned to transport naturally occurring fire long before they mastered the art of creating it. You see the early form of that behavior right here. No one speaks, yet everyone understands the value of what you hold. You crouch near the smoldering patch where the lightning struck. Beneath charred grass, small embers still pulse. You extend your stick again, rolling it gently near the glowing coals. Sparks whisper upward. The ember catches more strongly this time, burning brighter against the wood. Your chest warms with a quiet, primal excitement. You need something to protect the ember. You scan the ground and find clusters of dry grass, thin strips of bark, a few brittle twigs. With slow movements, you gather them into your palm. You wrap the grass loosely around the glowing end, careful not to smother it completely. The warmth gathers under the grass, glowing faintly through the fibers. It is delicate, but real. You stand, lifting your creation with both hands. Your group watches closely. Their expressions carry awe and uncertainty. You feel like you are holding something alive. The fire behind you has begun to shrink. Flames collapse into the center, leaving only glowing patches and rising smoke. The lightning storm gifted this fire, yet its life is short unless someone chooses to preserve it. You step away from the dying blaze and walk toward the group, cradling your ember bundle. The tall hunter, who often leads the group, touches the edge of the wrapped grass with a single finger. The heat makes him flinch slightly. He grunts approvingly. In this small gesture, you sense a shift among your companions. They are beginning to see fire not only as a force to fear or admire, but as a resource that can be tended and used. One unusual theory sometimes mentioned by researchers suggests that the earliest carriers of fire may have been inspired not by deliberate planning but by accidents. For example, a burning branch might have been dragged away by an animal or caught in a hunter's spear. Whether or not that happened, the scene unfolding now feels intentional, purposeful, evolutionary. The group begins to move. You walk with them, staying in the center so the ember is shielded from the wind. Every few steps, you glance down to ensure the faint glow remains alive. When the breeze grows too strong, you cup your hands around the wrapped grass, protecting it as if protecting a fragile infant. Your feet press into muddy patches left behind by the rain. You navigate over fallen branches slick with moisture. The weight of the ember in your hand feels symbolic, almost spiritual. You think of the cold nights behind you and the countless nights ahead. If this tiny flame can be kept alive, the group may never face darkness in quite the same way again. You reach a cluster of trees that offer shelter from the wind. Here, the group pauses. The leader gestures for you to crouch. You kneel and lift the bundle slightly to show the others the glowing ember inside. They gather around. You unwind a few pieces of grass. A thin curl of smoke escapes, and the ember glows brighter upon contact with fresh air. You notice something important. The ember might kindle new fire if it touches something dry enough, but the land is still damp from the storm. The group searches, their hands brushing over tree roots, old pods, and dried bark in hopes of finding something that will catch easily. A younger member discovers a handful of dry seed husks beneath the shelter of an overhanging rock. They hand them to you with an eager look. You place the husks near the ember, blowing softly to encourage the heat. The ember brightens, sending a tiny flare into the husks. They smolder, then glow, then collapse into red dust. Not enough to ignite a flame, but progress. You inhale slowly. Your breath tastes of smoke and hope. Another hunter brings you a thin strip of bark peeled from a tree. It is dry at its center. You lay it gently near the ember and blow again, steady and slow. The ember clings to the bark, spreading a faint orange line along its surface. The group leans in as if witnessing a sacred moment. But the flame does not grow. Not yet. The air is still too wet and the wind slips between the trees with a cold bite. You wrap the bark again, shielding the ember. You know you must keep moving before the cold drains its strength. You stand, and the group continues deeper into the shelter of the trees. The terrain becomes uneven, with exposed roots and fallen logs that slow your pace. You clutch your ember bundle tightly to your chest. Each gust of wind tests your reflexes. Each step carries the risk of smothering or losing the heat. As you walk, the sun climbs higher, breaking through the thinning clouds. Light pours through the branches in smooth, warm shafts. You pause when the sunlight reaches your hands. You lift the bundle toward it. The heat of the sun helps dry the fresh grass around the ember. Steam rises faintly. You smile, realizing the sun itself has become part of your effort to preserve fire. Farther ahead, you find a patch of grass still dry from shelter under thick branches. You kneel there, unwrapping the ember again. This time, the grass catches more easily. A wisp of smoke curls upward. You blow gently. The glow strengthens, creeping along a small cluster of fibers. The group remains silent, their breaths held. You continue blowing, steady and calm, Then it happens. A small flame appears, tiny, trembling, but alive. Warm orange light flickers against your hands. You feel heat against your face. The group lets out a collective whisper of amazement. It feels like the earth itself has spoken to them. A widely accepted theory holds that learning to nurture fire from a single spark may have been one of the most transformative thresholds for early humans. Watching this moment unfold, you believe it completely. Your flame is small but stable. You add more dry grass, then small twigs. The flame grows taller, brighter, stronger. You lean back slowly and let out a long breath. This fire is yours now, not the storm's. Your group gathers closer, forming a protective circle. They extend their hands toward the warmth, sighing softly as heat spreads along their cold skin. The flame crackles gently, lighting their faces with soft gold. For the first time, you feel the beginning of mastery. Not full control, not creation, but stewardship. The ability to carry fire, to protect it, to coax it back to life. You look at the growing flame and understand its promise. It is warmth on freezing nights. It is light in oppressive darkness. It is protection from creatures lurking just outside the glow. It is possibility. You feed the flame another twig. It responds with a bright lick of light. Your ancestors have just taken their first step in turning fire from a wild force into a companion. The fire glows warmly in the clearing, and for the first time since the storm you feel your shoulders loosen. The flames dance in small waves, twisting upward with a soft hiss each time a twig collapses into glowing ash. Your group gathers around it with quiet reverence. No one moves too quickly. No one speaks above a whisper. This is not just warmth. It is discovery taking its first breath. You crouch near the edge of the fire, studying it as if it were an unfamiliar animal. The flames sway gently, almost rhythmically, responding to each shift of the wind. You reach your hand closer, pausing when the heat becomes intense, then pulling back with a small gasp. It amazes you how the fire gives warmth one moment and threatens your skin the next. It is gentle, then fierce. It consumes, yet it nurtures. According to many specialists who study the earliest human interactions with fire, Homo erectus likely understood fire through long periods of close observation. You feel that process now. Every crackle, every hiss, every flicker becomes a lesson. You can tell when the fire is hungry by the way the flames shrink. You notice how it grows stronger when fed dry materials. It behaves almost like a creature with moods, one that rewards care and punishes negligence. You pick up a long stick and ease it into the outer edge of the flame. It catches slowly, glowing orange before the tip bursts into a tiny blaze. You lift it and watch the fire cling to the wood like a living thing. You turn the stick gently, letting the fire crawl along its length. The glow warms your face and paints your fingers with shimmering light. One unusual but intriguing interpretation suggests that early humans may have thought of fire as a spirit or a living entity, not simply a natural force. You can understand why. The flame in your hand seems almost aware of movement, reacting to each change in air and touch. It is impossible not to feel a strange respect for it. You thrust the stick deeper into the flames, but a sudden flare forces you to pull back. A burst of heat washes against your skin, and the group steps away with startled sounds. The fire crackles loudly as if scolding you. You steady yourself and kneel again. The fire returns to its calm swaying, and you exhale slowly. Your companions begin testing the fire for themselves. One reaches a hand toward the warmth, withdrawing at the edge of pain. Another tosses in a handful of dried grass, smiling faintly when the flames surge. A child steps closer and imitates you, poking at the logs with a stick. Their cautious movements show a combination of fear and fascination. The fire becomes a teacher. Each spark becomes a piece of knowledge waiting to be learned. A widely recognized piece of archaeological evidence suggests that early hearths may have functioned not only as sources of warmth, but also as communal spaces where groups gathered to observe and experiment together. You see the beginnings of that dynamic here. Your group huddles closer, forming a half circle. Their bodies relax, their breath slow. The warmth loosens the cold from their muscles in a way nothing else can. You pick up a larger branch from the ground. The wood is still damp on the outside from the storm, but the inner layers feel dry. You tap it lightly against the edge of the fire pit. Then you lower it into the flames. At first nothing happens. Then a thin wisp of smoke rises from the bark. The wood darkens. Small bubbles of sap appear. Slowly, the fire begins to chew into it. The flames creep upward with patience, as if testing the wood before accepting it. The group watches closely. You wait until the branch finally catches, then set it gently on the glowing coals. The fire brightens significantly, pushing back the cold air with renewed strength. Another thought passes through your mind, drawn from ideas proposed by several anthropologists. They suggest that mastering fire required an extended period of trial and error. You can feel that truth as you experiment. You sense how easily the fire could die if left unattended for too long. You sense how quickly it could grow out of control if fed too much at once. Balance is everything. A sudden gust of wind sweeps through the clearing. The flames bend sideways, sparks scattering in a brief shower. You panic for a moment, shielding your face. The ember core remains stable, but small burning fragments drift into the nearby grass. Your group reacts immediately, stomping the sparks before they can ignite dry areas. You join them, pressing your foot against a glowing patch until it dims. You return to the fire and feel a pulse of adrenaline mixed with relief. The group now understands something vital. Fire is not only useful, it is unpredictable. It demands attention. You sit again and lean closer, watching the flames recover their slow rhythm. You place a few more small twigs near the center, arranging them in a loose pattern. You notice the fire burns differently depending on how the materials are placed. Branches stacked tightly produce a lower, hotter glow. Twigs spread apart make taller, gentler flames. The structure changes everything. One intriguing perspective often mentioned in scientific circles suggests that early humans may have viewed fire almost as a problem-solving partner, not because they understood it intellectually, but because each interaction revealed new possibilities. As you adjust the twigs and watch the fire respond, you feel the beginning of that ancient partnership. Your group begins to settle as the warmth spreads outward. Some sit with their legs stretched toward the fire, sighing softly. Others rub their hands together, soaking in the comfort. The child curls beside a parent, eyelids heavy as the heat lulls their body into rest. The fire becomes the center of the world for a moment. Its glow outlines the faces around you. Light flickers across their eyes, revealing hints of curiosity, relief, and something deeper, a sense of safety in a dangerous world. You touch the ground beside the fire. The soil is warm. A gentle heat radiates through your fingertips. You imagine how nights might change with this new companion. No more shivering endlessly in the dark. No more waking to frozen limbs. Fire can push back the night. Fire can slow the hunger that cold carries. You lean back on your hands and breathe in the smoky air. The smell is thick and earthy. It clings to your skin, settling into your hair. It will follow you for days, marking you as a creature who has touched flame. Your eyes lift to the sky. The clouds have thinned. Patches of pale blue appear between them. The sunlight filters through leaves, mingling with the warm glow from the fire. Morning has deepened into full day, yet you feel strangely calm. The world seems slightly more manageable now. Another idea occasionally raised by researchers comes to mind. They propose that early humans may have associated fire with moments of calm reflection. Even without language, they might have used the quiet time at the hearth to observe, think, and internalize new experiences. As you sit by the flames, letting your breath slow, you sense how easily the mind drifts into stillness beside warmth. You add another twig. The flame curls around it in a soft spiral of orange. You smile faintly, caught in the rhythm of the fire. The group begins preparing to move again. You know the fire cannot be left behind. Someone must take responsibility. You stand and gather remaining embers into a makeshift container of bark and tightly bundled grass. You save enough to reignite warmth later in the day. You watch the flames dim as you remove the ember core. The fire settles into glowing coals. Then you rise, holding the ember pack carefully, and the group begins its next journey. The fire does not follow you, but its heart does, and that is enough to change the world. You walk with the ember bundle held close to your chest, feeling its soft warmth soak into your arms as your group makes its way toward a cluster of rocks in the distance. The fire you left behind has faded, but its spirit travels with you, glowing faintly inside its cradle of bark and dried grass. Every few steps you glance down to make sure the ember remains alive. It flickers gently through the fibers, a warm, pulsing reminder that you now carry something powerful. The day stretches slowly. The ground shifts under your feet from soft soil to small pebbles that crunch lightly with each step. The breeze cools your face, but the ember offers a balance, a subtle comfort that loosens the tension in your shoulders. Your group moves steadily, guided by familiarity rather than destination. Their strides are calm but purposeful. It seems all of them feel the same urgency. Find a safe place to rest before dusk. As you near the rocky outcrop, the scent of old stone and dry earth fills the air. The rocks rise from the ground like silent guardians. Their surfaces are rough and pale, marked by centuries of wind. You lead the way toward a narrow gap between two boulders. Inside, the space widens slightly, offering a shallow hollow sheltered from most of the wind. The others begin clearing the ground, brushing away fallen leaves and scattered debris. You crouch and unwrap the ember bundle carefully. A faint thread of smoke rises. The ember glows weakly but steadily, like a soft eye watching you from within the grass. You feel a surge of relief. The journey has not extinguished it. You place a few dry twigs around the ember, arranging them in the shape you observed earlier. You blow gently, giving the ember air without overwhelming it. The glow brightens. A small curl of smoke forms, then another. Slowly, patiently, a thin flame appears. It wavers for a moment before catching the edge of a twig. The others gather around, their faces reflecting the first flicker of light. A sense of quiet pride moves through your chest as the flame grows. You feed it another twig, watching the fire strengthen as it licks at the bark. According to many archaeological interpretations, the ability to create a stable hearth marked a profound shift in human routine. A hearth was not merely a place to burn wood, it became a center for rest, protection, and shared experience. You feel that transformation beginning as the flames rise in your small shelter. Your group settles around the fire in a loose circle. They stretch their legs toward the warmth, sighing softly as their muscles relax. The child tucks into their mother's side, eyelids heavy from the long walk. The fire's glow reflects on their cheeks, painting them in soft amber light. You adjust the branches again. You notice how the flames climb higher when the wood lies in a certain pattern. You realize how the air flows between gaps, helping the fire grow. These details settle into your mind with surprising ease, as if fire is teaching you its rules one spark at a time. A curious notion shared by some researchers comes to mind. It suggests that early humans may have learned the behavior of fire long before developing complex language. Their understanding grew through imitation, gesture, and the slow accumulation of shared experience. Watching your group now, you see how knowledge can pass silently. A child watches you add fuel, then copies the movement. Another adult pays attention to how you shield the flame from gusts of wind. The learning is quiet, but constant. The warmth spreads outward in soft waves. Your cold, stiffened fingers finally loosen. Your breath no longer leaves your lips in fast, shallow bursts. The fire becomes the center of everything, drawing you inward with its glow. As the flame stabilizes, you notice how sound changes in its presence. The crackling of twigs covers distant noises, creating a small circle of auditory comfort. The wind continues to whistle outside the shelter, but its sharpness fades. You hear it differently now, softened by the fire's steady rhythm. Your group begins preparing food scavenged earlier in the day. A few roots, some fibrous stems, a small collection of edible pods. You watch as one of the older members places a root near the fire, close enough to warm but not burn. The smell soon changes slightly. The harsh bitterness softens, giving way to a mild, earthy aroma. Someone touches the heated root and nibbles a small piece. Their eyes widen. The warmth has altered the flavor. A well-supported insight in human evolution suggests that cooking began not with deliberate cuisine, but with simple discoveries like this one. Heat softens tough fibers. It makes certain foods safer and easier to chew. You sense that revelation hovering in the air, though your group does not yet fully grasp the importance of what they have stumbled upon. You taste a warmed piece of root. It feels softer against your teeth. The bitterness has faded. You chew with unexpected ease. The warmth travels from your mouth into your chest, creating a sense of comfort that goes beyond hunger. The fire crackles again, sending sparks swirling upward. You lean forward, feeding the flame a few thin branches. The fire responds instantly, climbing into a brighter arc. You smile softly at the flame as if greeting a friend. An interesting line of thought from several paleoanthropologists suggests that early humans may have developed emotional associations with fire long before they understood its practical uses. Warmth, safety, and light can easily become symbols of comfort. As you sit by the flames, that idea does not feel far-fetched at all. Your group shifts positions, bodies inch closer to the glow. The fire heats the stone walls, turning them into a reservoir of warmth. Even the air seems softer now, less sharp on your skin. Twilight begins creeping across the sky outside the shelter. Colors fade slowly from gold to gray as the sun lowers behind the distant hills. Shadows stretch across the ground, reaching toward your refuge. You glance into the darkening landscape and feel a sense of separation. The world beyond the fire seems colder, wilder, more dangerous. You add a sturdy piece of wood to the growing hearth. The fire accepts it with a low hum and begins burning steadily. Your group watches, trusting that the flame will hold through the night. Another idea sometimes discussed by researchers enters your mind. The hearth may have been the first true gathering place for humans, the first symbol of shared identity. Around fire, early humans could stay awake longer, reflect, plan, and simply be together. Here, in this rocky hollow, you feel that sense of community forming. The firelight dances across faces, revealing small smiles and tired eyes. Your group leans in close, warmed by the glow, bound by the same fragile miracle. For the first time, night does not feel like an enemy. It feels like something you are finally prepared to meet. The fire continues to burn through the night, and when morning finally arrives, you wake to a soft bed of embers glowing beneath a thin layer of ash. The air outside the rocky shelter feels surprisingly gentle, but you can still sense the memory of cold lingering just beyond the first warmth of daylight. You rise slowly, stretching stiff limbs, and glance at the hearth. The ash shifts as a breeze passes through, revealing small points of light pulsing at its core. Your group begins to stir. Some brush away dirt from their arms. Others collect nearby stones, roots, and branches. The space feels different now, less chaotic, more intentional. Fire has shaped the morning rhythm, and everyone seems to recognize it without needing words. You crouch by the hearth and blow lightly across the ash. Thin smoke rises. Beneath it, the embers brighten. You feed them a few dry twigs. The familiar crackle returns, slow and steady. The flames rise once more. The simple action fills you with quiet satisfaction. Your group eats a modest breakfast. A few roots softened by leftover warmth, a handful of berries found in a shaded grove, and a scattering of edible leaves. The meal is simple, but the heated roots feel kinder on your teeth than the raw ones used to. The difference is subtle but undeniable. As you finish eating, you notice one of the hunters sharpening a stone tool. They scrape one stone against another, creating a rhythmic tapping. Tiny flakes fall away. The resulting edge looks cleaner, sharper. According to widely accepted archaeological findings, the Acheulean hand axe was a signature tool associated with Homo erectus. You imagine something similar forming in the hunter's hands now. Its edges glint as sunlight catches the smooth stone surface. Another member of the group watches your fire with intrigue. They pick up a small stick and hold it near the flame, turning it slowly. The end blackens. A thin char layer forms. You smell the shifting scent of wood changing under heat. Without realizing it, you witness another small discovery. Fire toughens wood or makes it easier to shape. That knowledge will matter later, though none of you know it yet. You and your group pack up slowly. Before leaving, you take the time to prepare a new ember bundle. You select a thicker piece of bark and pack it carefully with dry grasses. You scoop a glowing ember from the hearth and nestle it inside. Smoke trails upward in a thin line as the ember settles. You wrap the bundle tightly, then hold it close to your chest. The group sets out across the open land once again. The sun rises higher, warming your skin. You can smell the rich scent of soil heated by morning light. Birds circle the air above you, their calls echoing across the plain. The world feels alive, pulsing with sound and movement. As you walk, the terrain shifts gradually. The flat plains give way to rolling hills dotted with scattered shrubs. You move carefully, aware that food is not always easy to find. The group fans out slightly to search for roots, seeds, or signs of animal tracks. Each person plays a role without needing instruction. A few hours into your journey, the wind turns colder. You tighten your grip on the ember bundle. The warmth radiating from it calms your nerves. You can already imagine how much relief it will bring when the next chill sets in. You reach a gentle slope that leads into a wide basin. The land here looks different. Vegetation is thicker, greener. A shallow stream cuts across the center of the basin, sparkling in the midday light. You kneel to drink. The water tastes clean and refreshingly cold. As you rest near the stream, you observe several animal tracks along the muddy bank. Some belong to small deer-like creatures. Others belong to something heavier. A round print with deep impressions suggests a large herbivore passed through recently. The hunters examine the tracks with sharp eyes. They gesture to one another, tracing patterns in the mud. Their movements express intention and caution. A compelling interpretation favored by several scholars suggests that early humans may have used fire to influence hunting patterns long before true strategy emerged. For example, carrying a smoldering torch might help keep predators away during tracking. You hold your ember bundle and consider how its warmth might serve more purposes than survival alone. Your group moves again, following the edge of the basin. You climb a series of low ridges, the earth beneath your feet shifting from soft mud to rough gravel. The sun climbs to its highest point, bathing the land in bright light. Shadows shorten. The warmth intensifies. You hold the ember bundle lightly to avoid overheating it. Near the top of a ridge, you pause. A wide view unfolds below you. Patches of forest stretch along the horizon. Grassy plains roll like gentle waves. A faint haze rises from the distant ground, shimmering under sunlight. You sense the vastness of the world in a way that stirs something deep and wordless inside your chest. The group descends into a shaded area filled with tall trees. The air cools instantly. The scent of damp leaves surrounds you. You hear the soft patter of drops falling from branches overhead. They glisten like beads of glass when the sun finds them. You stop near a fallen tree. Its bark is soft and beginning to break apart. You see insects crawling along its cracked surface. A few members of the group gently lift pieces of the bark, revealing fat grubs beneath. They gather them quickly. Protein is precious. You sit in the shade and examine the ember bundle again. The smoke is faint but still present. You loosen the outer layer carefully, allowing the ember to breathe. Its glow brightens, reassuring you. The group pauses to rest in the cool shade. Some sit against tree trunks. Others lie on soft moss. You feel the calm settling in, carried by the quiet melody of leaves rustling above you. While resting, you notice the older hunter retrieving the charred stick they prepared earlier. They place the blackened tip gently against their teeth and bite slightly. The wood separates in a cleaner, straighter line than an unheated stick would have. A fascinating hypothesis often mentioned in studies of early toolmaking proposes that fire-hardened wood might have been used to shape or refine tools long before metal existed. Watching the hunter work now, that idea feels tangible. Your group rises after the brief rest. You continue walking through the shaded forest, following a faint trail created by large animals. The canopy filters the sunlight into scattered beams. Your eyes adjust to the dimmer surroundings. The air grows cooler still. Then a sound breaks the stillness. A rustle, a crack of a branch. The group freezes. You hold your breath. Something large is moving nearby, hidden by thick foliage. You grip the ember bundle tightly. The movement shifts. A heavy snort echoes through the trees. The hunters exchange glances. They ready their stone tools. You step back quietly, aware of your vulnerability. But the creature moves away. You hear its footsteps pounding softly against the ground. Leaves tremble. Then silence returns. Relief washes through your group. Shoulders loosen. Breath steadies. One of the hunters nods lightly in your direction, signaling that you may continue walking. Eventually, the trees thin, and sunlight spills onto your path again. You emerge from the forest into a broad clearing. The wind stirs the tall grass. The warmth of midday air replaces the forest's cool shadows. This clearing feels safe enough to pause. You kneel, unwrapping the ember bundle once more. You gather dry grass and wood. With practiced breaths, you coax the ember into a small flame. The fire rises quickly this time, fed by sunlight-dried materials. The group gathers close again. Some warm their hands, others warm food. A soft sense of ritual begins forming around the hearth. The placement of stones, the careful feeding of the flames, the way everyone sits in a gentle arc. An insightful perspective shared by many experts proposes that fire became a unifying center for early social bonds. Sitting in the clearing now, watching flames reflect in familiar eyes, you feel the truth of that deeply. The fire's glow softens the harshness of the world. It ties the group together in quiet harmony. And as the flames sway, you sense a new understanding forming inside you. Fire is not simply an external force. It is beginning to shape the way you live, the way you move, the way you think. You feed the flame another twig, letting its light grow stronger. The journey continues. But now, you carry more than just warmth. You carry connection. The sun continues its slow journey across the sky as your group rests in the clearing, but you can feel the shift in the air. The warmth of midday begins to fade. A subtle sting settles against your skin as a colder wind creeps in from the north. You look toward the open plains beyond the trees and notice a thin line of mist trailing along the horizon. Winter is drawing closer. Each passing day brings a slightly sharper chill, a slightly darker dusk, a slightly longer night. You crouch by the fire, feeling its heat radiate into your face, while your back senses the growing cold behind you. The contrast makes you shiver. You add a few more branches, listening to the familiar crackle as the flames rise. The fire responds instantly, almost gratefully, sending soft waves of warmth across the clearing. Your companions shift closer, huddling around it as if drawn by instinct. According to several well-regarded climate studies, the world Homo erectus inhabited often swung between periods of warmth and sudden drops in temperature. You feel that reality settling into your bones now. The wind carries a crispness that signals harsher nights ahead. The body of each person around you seems to acknowledge the same truth. The fire is no longer merely useful. It is becoming essential. As the warmth spreads, a young member of the group reaches out and lets their fingers hover near the flame. They watch the fire with wide eyes. The light dances across their face, making the shadows ripple behind them. You see curiosity there, but also awareness. The cold makes lessons easier to accept. You rise and survey the surrounding land. The clearing provides shelter for now, but it offers little protection once the wind fully sharpens. You can already imagine icy gusts sweeping across this open space after sunset. The group will need a safer resting place, somewhere with cover, somewhere where fire can survive the night without being extinguished by an unkind gust. A practical line of reasoning, supported by archaeological interpretations, suggests that Homo erectus often sought refuge in caves or rock shelters during colder periods. You look toward a set of low hills in the distance and notice darkened patches in their surface, possible openings, possible refuge. You gesture toward the hills. The leader follows your gaze and nods. The group begins gathering their few possessions. One of the hunters kicks dirt softly over the outer edge of the fire to prevent stray sparks from drifting into the grass. You save a glowing ember again, wrapping it carefully in dry material. The bundle pulses faintly in your hands, warm and alive. You begin walking. The wind grows colder as you leave the relative safety of the trees. Your breath forms soft clouds that float away behind you. You tuck the ember bundle inside your wrap to shield it from the wind. Each step feels heavier now, and the chill begins to creep into your legs. The group pushes forward, moving in a tighter formation than usual. The cold encourages closeness. Shoulders brush. Feet fall into similar rhythms. You can hear the breathing of those around you, quick and shallow at first, then more controlled as they adjust to the temperature. The landscape grows quieter as the cold deepens. Insects fall silent. Small animals remain hidden. Even the birds reduce their calls. The world seems to hold its breath. Only the wind speaks, and its voice is harsh. A thought proposed by some researchers drifts through your mind. They suggest that early hominins may have formed stronger social cooperation in times of environmental stress, bonding more tightly as temperatures fell. The behavior around you supports that idea. The group moves as a unified body, alert and interdependent. Fire has given purpose, but the cold reinforces connection. You climb the first slope of the hills, gripping stones for balance as the earth grows uneven beneath your feet. The rocks feel icy, their surfaces slick from condensation. Your breath grows faster as you climb. The ember bundle at your chest warms your hands, giving you the strength to continue. When you reach the top of the slope, you see one of the dark openings clearly. It sits low against the hillside, partially concealed by tangled roots. It looks shallow but promising. You lead your group toward it. Inside the entrance, the air feels slightly warmer than the wind outside. The walls curve inward gently, creating a protective bowl. The floor is layered with old leaves and patches of soil. It is not perfect, but it is shelter. You kneel and unwrap the ember bundle. The glowing coal inside has dimmed but still carries enough heat to ignite dry grass. You gather small sticks and place them in a loose cluster. With slow breaths, you coax the ember to life again. Smoke curls upward. A small flame appears, flickering like a fragile insect wing. Then it grows, catching the twigs one by one. The cave fills with an amber glow. Shadows stretch across the walls like ancient art brought to life. The warmth spreads outward, filling the space with a gentle comfort that contrasts sharply with the cold just outside. Your group settles around the fire. Some sit directly on the stone floor. Others crouch. A few lie down near the back of the cave, soaking in the preserved heat that clings to the rock. You watch the fire begin to build a steady rhythm. The flames sway softly. The embers pulse. The smoke rises in a thin spiral toward an opening in the cave's ceiling. You feed the fire slowly, learning again what it needs to thrive. A lesser-known idea from certain anthropologists suggests that early humans may have used the reflective surfaces of cave walls to observe the behavior of fire indirectly, learning without risking injury. As the light dances against the stone now, you understand how captivating and instructive those flickers must have been. You sit with the group as the fire burns. You feel the comfort settle deep into your chest. Outside the cave, the wind howls. Inside, the world feels still, warm, and safe. This balance will not last. Winter is coming closer. Each night grows colder, longer, harsher. But you have fire now, and fire gives you something the cold cannot take. A reason to endure. You glance at the glowing embers, feeling their strength mirror your own. The flames sway. The cave warms. Your group breathes in unison. For the first time in this unfolding winter, hope feels as real as the heat touching your skin. You wake inside the cave to a soft orange glow trembling across the stone walls. The fire has burned low during the night, leaving a bed of coals breathing in the dimness. Your body feels warmer than on previous mornings, and for a moment you simply lie still, listening to the gentle pops rising from the hearth. Outside the cave mouth, the world remains grey and cold. Frost clings to the grass just beyond the entrance, glittering faintly under the first light of dawn. You sit up slowly, stretching cramped legs. Your breath forms pale clouds in the cool air inside the cave, though they fade quickly near the warmth of the coals. Around you, others begin to stir. Some rub their hands together. Others curl closer to the fading heat before rising. The presence of the cave and the fire has changed the group's movements. There is less urgency in their waking, less fear. A rhythm is forming. You kneel beside the coals and gently sift a layer of ash aside. The embers beneath glow like small gems. You place a handful of dry grass over them and blow softly. The grass curls inward as smoke seeps through the fibers. A moment later, small flames unfurl. Their light grows slowly, casting longer shadows along the stone walls. With the fire revived, you look around the cave more carefully. The ceiling slopes in a smooth arc, shaped by centuries of weather and shifting stone. The walls hold tiny cracks filled with bits of mineral shimmer. The floor is uneven, but patches of dry earth make it comfortable enough. The wind echoes faintly at the entrance but cannot penetrate deeply into the shelter. Many archaeologists note that natural shelters like caves often served as temporary refuges rather than permanent homes for early humans. You can sense why. The cave is safe, but only for the moment. Food changes with the land. Water shifts with season. The wanderer's life never stays still. A hunter approaches the fire and warms his hands. He glances at the entrance as if measuring the day. You follow his gaze. The cold outside looks severe, with frost webbing across the rocks like delicate white lace. You feel the chill from a distance. Winter is nearing full strength. One of the younger members of the group brings over a bundle of sticks collected during the previous afternoon. Their hands are still numb from the cold, but their eyes show pride in gathering material for the fire. You take the sticks and sort them. Thick ones near the edge, thin ones in the center. You place a small branch across the hottest part of the coals. The fire responds with a gentle crackling sound, rising into steady flame. A perspective often shared in archaeological discussions is that fire allowed Homo erectus to settle for longer periods in places that would otherwise be too cold or dangerous. Watching the group now, you feel that truth in the ease of their movements. They rest. They repair tools. They observe the land from safety. You move toward the cave entrance to assess the surroundings. The air outside bites at your cheeks. You step into the open with cautious feet. The frost-covered ground crunches beneath you. The sun has not yet crested fully, leaving the land washed in pale silver light. The hills surrounding your shelter slope in smooth, rounded lines. Here and there, low shrubs cling to the earth, their leaves coated with crystalline ice. You spot distant movement near the hillside. A small herd of animals grazes quietly. Their breath rises in white clouds. They look leaner than they did weeks earlier. Winter affects them too. You return to the cave and motion to the group that the area is safe for now. They step into the cold one by one, gathering beside you. Together, you survey the land. The hunters exchange glances, deciding whether to track the herd. Food is scarce, but the cold makes chasing difficult. The group hesitates. A thought proposed by some researchers suggests that during colder seasons, early humans relied more heavily on scavenging than active hunting. The drop in temperature reduced stamina, and made long chases dangerous. You can feel that limitation in your own muscles. You know endurance will return once the day warms slightly. You leave the question of hunting behind for now and turn your attention back to the cave. The shelter will need strengthening if you intend to stay the night. You gather branches and dried plants from nearby bushes and bring them to the entrance. With the help of others, you arrange them to form a partial windbreak. It reduces the biting gusts that slip through the opening. Inside, the fire brightens. The group gathers around it again, sitting close, warming stiff limbs. You observe the way their faces soften near the flames. The flickering light brings a sense of calm, a sense of safety and shared warmth. You pick up a long branch with a charred end. You turn it in your hands, feeling the hardened tip. Several anthropologists believe that heat treatment of wood may have been one of the earliest experiments with fire-altering material. You sense how useful this hardened wood could be. Stronger, less likely to split. You tap the ground lightly with the tip, hearing a sharper sound than untreated branches make. A child nearby mimics you, picking up a small stick and placing it carefully near the flame. They watch as the end begins to char. You smile faintly, realizing how knowledge spreads even without structured teaching. What you learn becomes shared simply through observation. Your group begins preparing food again. The small stalks and roots they gathered earlier require effort to chew, but heating them makes the texture softer. You place a few near the fire, turning them slowly. Their scent changes as they warm, becoming sweeter and more appealing. One of the older members of the group grinds a root with a stone, producing a paste-like texture. They place it in a broad leaf and warm it gently. Curiosity stirs within you. The paste thickens into something easier to eat. You taste it. The warmth soothes your mouth and fills your stomach with comfort. Several scholars argue that changes in diet brought by fire played a significant role in human evolution. Softer food meant less energy spent chewing, more nutrients absorbed, and more time for social interaction. You feel that truth intimately as your group shares heated food in quiet harmony. The day moves forward. The frost begins to melt slowly, leaving glistening beads on the grass. You step outside again. The air is still cold, but the sunlight weakens its edge. The landscape seems gentler now that you know you can return to the fire at any moment. Your group spreads out around the cave to search for materials. Some collect stones, others gather branches. The hunters move with careful steps, observing the movement of animals. Each action feels connected to fire. The shelter circles around it. The routine forms around it. Even the search for food adapts to the presence of a reliable hearth. As the afternoon deepens, the wind strengthens again. You hurry back into the cave and warm your hands. You feel the sharp contrast between outside and inside. How quickly the cold tries to reclaim the world. But the fire resists. Flames climb higher, pushing back the chill. A thought sometimes raised in debates among specialists suggests that fire fundamentally altered the emotional experience of early humans. By shrinking the darkness and softening the cold, fire made it possible to feel calm, reflective, even contemplative. Sitting now by the hearth, listening to its steady breathing, you understand how that shift might have unfolded. Night approaches. You place larger pieces of wood around the fire to keep it burning longer. The group settles again into a circle around the hearth. They huddle close, bodies touching, sharing warmth. The flames dance along the cave walls, drawing patterns of light that seem almost alive. The fire crackles. The wind outside howls. Inside, the space glows softly with a sense of belonging. You lean back and let the heat wash over you. The cave shelter feels more complete now. It feels like a refuge crafted by ancient hands and guided by the steady rhythm of fire. You close your eyes briefly and breathe in the smoky air. Winter is still coming. The cold will grow harsher. The nights will stretch longer. But you know something now that you did not know before. Fire not only warms the body, it strengthens the spirit. The morning breaks slowly, as if the sun hesitates to rise in such cold. You open your eyes to a dim glow reflecting off the cave walls. the fire still breathing gently beside you. The warmth radiating from its coals makes waking less painful than it used to be. The cold outside remains sharp, but the fire softens the edge enough for you to stretch without wincing. Your group stirs in quiet waves. Some rub their arms. Others stand to stretch stiff legs. A soft murmur of movement fills the cave. The coals glow like tiny suns, scattered beneath a thin layer of ash. You kneel beside them and add a few dry twigs, watching as smoke curls upward. With a few patient breaths, the fire returns to life, steady and bright. The smell of warm embers mixes with the earthy scent of the cave floor. It reminds you of the meal from the night before, the softened roots and fragrant leaves warmed by the fire. You remember how the food tasted softer, how the warmth soothed your stomach. You reach for a small bundle of roots gathered yesterday and place them near the rekindled flames. A widely accepted finding in human evolution notes that cooking made nutrients easier to absorb, giving early humans more energy with less effort. You feel that extra strength now as you stand and move toward the cave entrance. The cold air hits you immediately, but it no longer steals your breath. You inhale deeply, exhale slowly, and step outside. The world is bright white with frost. The grass crunches beneath your feet. Ice glimmers on the rocks like thin sheets of glass. You survey the land, trying to sense the day's possibilities. The sky is clear, which means sunlight will eventually warm the plains, but for now, the morning remains brutally cold. Your group emerges one by one. Their breaths drift upward in pale clouds. They gather around you, glancing at the distant hills and the sparse vegetation. Food will be harder to find as winter deepens. The herds move differently now. The animals are wary and lean. Even the roots in the ground feel tougher. You lead the group down the slope, scanning the ground for any signs of movement or food. The soil crunches with each step. You see the faint tracks of small animals weaving across the frost. A set of deeper tracks catches your attention. Perhaps a young deer-like creature passed through recently. The hunters examine the tracks with practiced eyes, tracing the edges with their fingertips. One idea often highlighted in paleoanthropology is that fire may have changed the feeding habits of early humans by making previously unpalatable foods more accessible. As you walk, you find a cluster of stiff, fibrous plants. You kneel and pull one from the ground. The raw stem tastes bitter. You swallow only a small fragment, but you imagine how the taste might change if heated. The thought encourages you to gather more. Your group collects other items as well. Seeds from hardy shrubs, hard berries that cling stubbornly to frosted branches, a few tubers unearthed by sharp stones. The cold has toughened everything, but nothing is fully useless now that you can soften it with fire. You return to the cave with your findings. The warmth inside welcomes you. You place the gathered plants near the fire, watching the roots soften and the stems change color as they warm. The scent filling the cave is earthy and slightly sweet. Everyone watches closely, waiting for the moment when the food becomes easier to chew. As the meal cooks, one of the hunters tries something new. They place a piece of meat left over from a scavenged carcass onto a flat stone near the fire. Slowly, the meat sizzles. Fat drips onto the rock with a sharp hiss. A rich smell fills the cave, stronger and more inviting than any raw scent you have known. Your stomach tightens with hunger. You taste a small piece when it cools enough. It feels different, softer, warmer. Your teeth sink in more easily. Your entire body responds to the energy the food provides. You feel stronger within moments. Some specialists suggest that the shift to cooked meat significantly influenced the growth of early human brains. While you cannot name that idea here, you sense the power behind this discovery. Cooked food offers more than flavor. It offers survival. The group eats quietly. The fire crackles. The cave warms. You notice a few individuals leaning back with peaceful expressions, their bodies relaxing fully for the first time in days. A strange calm settles over you, not just from the food, but from this new way of living. When the meal ends, you return your attention to the fire. The embers glow in pulsing rhythms, The flames sway in slow arcs. You sense their patterns more clearly each day. You understand when the fire is strong enough to leave alone, when it needs more fuel, when it has burned too hot or too weak. A perspective often emphasized by researchers suggests that fire taught early humans the concept of patience. You feel that lesson now. Fire does not hurry. Fire demands slow hands, controlled breaths, steady choices. You add a large branch to the flames. It catches with a gentle hiss and brightens the entire cave. The others gather around, forming a circle. Their faces glow with the reflected light. Conversations remain wordless, but awareness passes from one person to another through glances and gestures. The fire becomes the heartbeat of the moment. Later in the day, the hunters decide to explore further into the hills. You watch them disappear into the frost-laced landscape. Others remain behind to protect the fire and gather more wood. You join them, stepping outside to collect fallen branches from the nearby slopes. Each branch breaks easily under your foot, dry enough to carry back. With the fire growing steadier, you begin arranging stones around its perimeter. You form a ring, creating a defined space for the flames. Another gathers small rocks and lines the inner edge. A thought often shared by experts proposes that controlled hearths marked a crucial shift in how early humans organized living spaces. You see that unfolding right here. The fire is no longer just a warm spot. It is a focal point, a gathering place, a hub of activity. When the hunters return with small scraps of meat from a scavenged kill, the fire becomes central again. They warm the meat by placing it on heated stones this time. The method works even better. No smoke stings their eyes. No flames lick their hands. The meal tastes richer, softer. A new pattern forms. Night begins to fall. The world outside dims into shades of blue and grey. You block some of the cold air with branches and stones at the cave entrance. The fire brightens as darkness grows. Shadows move across the walls in gentle waves, stretching and shrinking with each flicker. You sit close to the hearth, letting the heat seep into your bones. You look around at your companions. Their faces glow in the firelight. Their bodies are calmer, more relaxed, more unified. The firelight dances across the walls, illuminating the shelter with life. It pushes back the cold. It gathers the group into harmony. Winter closes in, but inside this cave, you feel protected. The fire is your shield, your teacher, your companion. And as you settle in for the night, you realize that it is shaping not just how you survive, but how you live. You wake once again to the gentle pulse of the hearth, its glow flickering across the cave walls like a living heartbeat guiding you through the dimness. The night has been long and bitterly cold. Frost still clings to the stones near the entrance. Outside, the land lies silent under a pale blanket of morning fog. You can feel the bite of winter even from your place beside the fire. But you also sense something far more powerful. Fire has turned this harsh world into a place you can inhabit, rather than simply endure. You rise slowly, warming your hands above the coals. The air carries a faint scent of charred wood and cooked roots from the previous night's meal. The familiar aroma brings an unexpected calm to your chest. Others in the group shift and stretch, their movements softened by the warmth. They wake more gently now, not with the frantic urgency that cold once demanded. Fire has granted them slower mornings. You feed the hearth a few thin branches. The flames climb upward with a quiet murmur. Their light chases shadows across the stone walls, revealing cracks, curves, and tiny ridges carved long before your ancestors ever stepped into this shelter. You step closer and run your fingertips along the rock. It is cool to the touch but warms slightly under the fire's reflected glow. You watch the shadows dance and imagine early humans from distant times gazing at similar patterns. Perhaps they found the same sense of comfort you feel now. Once the fire grows steady, you join the others outside. The cold greets you as soon as you step into the light. Your breath forms thick clouds. The frost crunches beneath your feet. A gust of wind sweeps across the hillside and sends a tremor through your muscles. You pull your wrap tighter and glance around. The landscape looks frozen, almost brittle. Winter has wrapped itself tightly across the land. You scan the area, watching for movement. The cold has driven many animals into hiding. Only a few small birds chirp weakly from frosted branches. The group fans out to search for food. You kneel and clear away a patch of icy soil, feeling for buried roots. The ground resists your fingers, stiff and unfriendly. But after some effort, you manage to extract a couple of tough tubers. They feel dense under your touch, difficult to bite raw but promising once warmed. A perspective often emphasized by researchers notes that the availability of warm food played a significant role in the survival of early humans during colder periods. You feel the truth of that as you tuck the frozen tubers under your arm and continue searching. The hunters venture farther from the cave. Their footprints leave crisp trails in the frost. You follow them at a distance, your senses sharpened. Winter has drawn predators closer to sheltered places. Hunger makes them bold. You do not want to meet a hungry cat or hyena without warning. The hunters stop suddenly. One kneels, examining something in the frosted dirt. You approach slowly. A set of tracks cuts across the ground. They are deep, wide, and unmistakably from a large predator. The hunters exchange serious glances. The freshness of the prints suggests the animal passed by only hours ago. An idea shared by several experienced field researchers suggests that fire may have served as a defensive tool long before it was used intentionally in hunting. You grip your ember bundle tightly, feeling the warmth inside. The presence of even a small ember feels reassuring in a world filled with creatures that can overpower you easily. The group retreats toward the cave with careful steps. When you finally return, the firelight spilling from the entrance feels like a lifeline. You revive the flame with a few pieces of dry bark. The warmth spreads outward, steadying your breath. Inside the shelter, you place the cold tubers near the fire. The transformation begins slowly. Frost melts. Steam rises faintly. The smell grows richer. Others bring their finds as well. Berries. Seeds. A handful of grubs collected from beneath a rotting stump. The variety may be small, but the fire turns them into a sustaining meal. As the food warms, one of the group members holds a sharpened wooden spear near the fire. You watch with interest as the tip darkens. The heat hardens it, making it stronger and more rigid. This subtle improvement could mean the difference between a failed hunt and a successful one. Observations like this suggest that early humans learned to use fire as a tool to modify materials long before they understood how deeply it would shape their future. Watching the spear harden now, you understand how these small experiments slowly changed the course of survival. You sit with the group around the fire, sharing the warm food. The tubers taste softer than they did when raw. Their bitterness fades. Your stomach welcomes the nourishment. A sense of strength flows from the meal into your limbs. After eating, your group rests briefly. The fire crackles, calming your mind. You listen to each pop and hiss. They echo gently in the enclosed space. The warmth soothes your aching muscles. You let your eyelids lower for a moment, absorbing the glow. Eventually, you rise and examine the cave more closely. The walls move with shifting shadows cast by the flames. They form shapes that seem to dance and twist. For a moment, you imagine the movements tell stories, perhaps stories of danger, or of past hunts, or of ancient storms. A few archaeologists have suggested that flickering firelight might have helped early humans develop imagination and symbolic thinking. Looking now at the shifting patterns, you feel something stirring in your mind, a quiet sense of wonder. The hunters return later in the afternoon, carrying small scraps of meat from a scavenged animal. They place the meat carefully on heated stones. The sizzle echoes through the cave. The smell is rich, warm, irresistible. Hunger sharpens in your belly. As the food warms, one hunter performs a quick glance toward the entrance, ensuring no predator follows the scent. The firelight glints off their stone tool. You notice how the warmth of the fire has allowed them to work longer with their hands, even in the cold. The skin of their fingers is not as numb as before. This subtle shift supports a theory noted in human evolution studies. Fire allowed early humans to stay active even in colder seasons, giving them capabilities that other animals lacked. The ability to plan, cook, craft, and observe through winter gave your ancestors a small but powerful advantage. The group shares the warm meat, passing small pieces from hand to hand. The meal strengthens you. Your breath grows steadier. Your body regains warmth. Afterward, you step outside once more. The sun sits low in the sky, spreading long shadows across the frost. The cold deepens. The wind sharpens. You gather more dry branches from the hillside, aware that night will fall soon. Returning to the cave, you feed the fire again. The flame rises, restoring heat to the air. The group settles in a circle, leaning against one another, their faces illuminated in amber tones. You sit near the heart of the hearth, listening to the fire's steady rhythm. Sparks drift upward toward the cave ceiling, glowing briefly before fading. They remind you of tiny stars in a dark sky. A thought shared by a number of specialists proposes that night fires may have encouraged early forms of social interaction, bonding individuals in ways that shaped cooperation. Watching the group now, you see how the fire pulls everyone closer. It creates a shared center, a shared peace. Outside, the sky darkens, the cold thickens, the world grows silent. Inside the cave, the fire breathes, steady and warm. You close your eyes, feeling its heat ease the tightness in your chest. For the first time in your memory, winter feels like something you can face with confidence. You lean closer to the flame, knowing it will be your ally in the nights to come. With fire by your side, even the cruelest winter begins to feel conquerable. The night fades slowly, and when you open your eyes, the cave glows with the soft remnants of firelight. A few embers still pulse beneath the ash like little eyes watching over the group. You stretch your legs, gently flexing stiff muscles. The cold outside will be severe, but the memory of warmth lingering in the cave helps you rise without rushing. You breathe in the smoky air and feel a sense of quiet anticipation. Today feels like a day for stories, though your people have no formal words yet, only gestures, murmurs, and glances filled with meaning. You revive the embers with practiced care, placing thin twigs over the glowing core. Smoke drifts upward in threads. With a few patient breaths, the flame returns, small at first, then bright enough to push shadows back from the walls. The others gather slowly. Their faces glow softly in the expanding light. Your group begins preparing food, grinding roots, warming hard berries, softening meat. The familiar sizzling sound on hot stones fills the cave with a rich scent. The fire becomes a quiet center of activity, each person contributing in some small way. You feel the rhythm of cooperation forming, shaped by shared warmth and shared hunger. When the meal is done, something unusual happens. Instead of dispersing quickly to gather supplies or hunt, your group remains seated around the hearth. They settle in with calm breaths, leaning back against the curved stone walls. Their eyes drift from one face to another, as if waiting for something to unfold. A perspective often discussed among researchers suggests that firelight encouraged early humans to stay awake longer after sunset, giving them time to observe one another, reflect on the day, and develop early forms of storytelling through gesture and sound. You sense that moment arriving now. The oldest member of the group lifts a charred stick and begins tracing shapes in the air. Soft grunts escape their throat, rising and falling like a gentle rhythm. You watch, captivated. They tilt their head and shift their shoulders, mimicking the movement of something stalking through grass. A few members lean closer, eyes widening. The gestures grow more dramatic. A swipe of the hand, a tilt forward, a sudden gasp. Gradually, you understand. They are reenacting the moment yesterday when the hunters found the predator tracks in the frost. The older member recreates the cautious steps, the deep impressions in the soil, the moment of quiet dread. The group reacts with low murmurs, huffed breaths, tense shoulders. Even without structured language, the meaning spreads clearly from one person to another. A thought sometimes proposed in studies of early human culture is that these shared enactments may have helped shape rudimentary planning and emotional bonding. You feel that bond growing as you watch your companions respond, their faces reflecting the flickering firelight. One child imitates the older storyteller, crouching low and making a soft growling sound. The group laughs in quiet bursts, the first sound of joy you have heard in days. The child glances at the fire, as if expecting praise from it too. Their boldness sparks a warm feeling in your chest. Encouraged, another adult begins a different set of gestures. They lift their hands to mimic cracking thunder, then sweep their fingers in zigzags across the air, imitating lightning from the storm that brought the first fire. Their voice hums with rising intensity. The group watches closely, memories stirring. You nod slowly, remembering the flash of light and the smell of smoke carried on the wind. The firelight grows brighter as the logs shift. Flames climb higher, casting long shadows against the walls that ripple and dance. Those shadows take on shapes of their own, twisting into imagined creatures or distant landscapes. The group quiets. You stare at the flickering stone, mesmerized. Some experts suggest that firelight may have sparked the earliest forms of imagination, helping humans envision things not physically present. The dancing shadows on the cave walls seem to prove that possibility. You see shapes in the light, the curve of an antelope's back, the outline of a predator rising from the tall grass, even the ghost of the storm that birthed your fire. You lean back, letting the warmth seep into your skin. The crackle of burning wood becomes its own melody. A soft tapping of stone echoes from one corner of the cave where someone prepares a new tool. The rhythmic scraping syncs with the crackling fire. It feels almost like music. As you drift into this calm, one more member of the group speaks. Their voice is quiet, low, almost musical. They use a series of rising and falling tones that remind you of the sound the wind made on the coldest night. They repeat the sounds, altering them slightly. The rest of the group listens intently. Some respond with similar tones. A number of scholars believe that wordless vocal play around the fire may have laid the groundwork for early language. Listening to this exchange now, you feel the possibility stirring. Rhythm, tone, shared attention. The fire ties all of these together in a single moment. You join the soft vocalization, letting your breath roll into a gentle hum. Another hum answers you. A third overlaps yours. Soon the cave fills with a low, resonant chorus. It is not singing. It is not speaking. It is something in between. Something ancient, something raw, something deeply human. When the sound fades, the group sits in comfortable silence, warmed by fire and each other's presence. The child curls beside their mother, eyes drifting towards sleep. The hunters lean back against the wall, muscles relaxing after days of tension. The older member gazes at the flames, their eyes reflecting tiny points of light. You notice how the fire has become more than a tool. It is a stage for shared experience, a canvas for movement, sound, memory, and imagination. It is the beginning of something larger than survival. Outside the cave, a faint call echoes through the winter air. The group tenses for a moment, listening carefully. You hear the cry again. It is distant, belonging to an animal far away. The tension eases. The fire has created a buffer of safety that changes the way you respond to threats. Not with panic, but with alertness. You feed the flame a final piece of wood. It rises in response, steady and warm. Night falls completely, turning the world outside into a cold ocean of darkness. But inside the cave, light continues, warmth continues, connection continues. You sit with your companions, sharing breath, memory, sound, and gentle gestures. For the first time, storytelling has entered the world. You lean closer to the hearth and feel the truth of that settle into your bones. Fire has given you more than survival. It has given you a place to reflect, imagine, remember, and share. And through those moments of shared warmth, humanity begins to grow inward as well as outward. You close your eyes, letting the fire's gentle rhythm guide you. Tonight, the flames carry stories, and tomorrow, they will carry you through winter again. The morning light creeps into the cave in thin, pale ribbons, brushing softly across your eyelids. You wake with a slow inhale, feeling the lingering warmth from the fire at your side. Last night's stories still echo softly in your mind, like shadows that continue moving even after the flames grow still. The cave feels peaceful, but as you rise to your feet, you sense the day calling you forward. Your group has rested long enough. New ground awaits, and winter presses from behind like an unseen hand urging you onward. You step outside and breathe in sharply. The cold air carries a metallic edge that stings your nostrils. Frost covers everything in a delicate sheet of white, making the world look as if it has been dusted with powdered stone. The sun lifts slowly from the horizon, warming nothing yet, only brightening the world's grey surface. You rub your arms and feel the wind slip through your wrap like water through cracks. The group gathers behind you. Some stretch their legs, others adjust their fur coverings. A few cradle bits of leftover food warmed briefly by the fire. The hunters look to the ridge beyond the cave, scanning for danger. With the memory of last night's stories still fresh in your thoughts, you notice that even their silent gestures seem more expressive this morning. The leader nods. It is time to move. You wrap the surviving ember in dry grass again, protecting its faint glow. The warmth in your hands is a quiet reassurance. You tuck the bundle close to your chest as the group descends into the basin below the hills. The land stretches wide before you, rippled with patches of forest, tall grass, and distant ridges. You sense that this journey will test how well you carry fire into new places. One observation often made by researchers is that Homo erectus was remarkable for long migrations across varied environments. You feel the truth of that as your group begins another slow march, each step marking an ongoing quest for food, warmth, and shelter. You cross a shallow stream, its surface glazed with thin ice that cracks delicately under each footfall. The water flowing beneath chills your skin, but you grit your teeth and push forward. The sun begins to warm the land in small patches, though the wind still carries a cold whisper. As you walk, you begin to notice subtle changes in the terrain. The ground dips and rises in gentle waves, leading your group toward a shoreline of dense shrubs. A faint scent of animals grazes the air. Perhaps a herd passed through recently. The hunters fan out, studying the frost for tracks. They kneel, tracing lines in the soil with careful fingers. The prints are hoof-shaped, light but numerous. A herd of grazing animals moved eastward at dawn. The tracks are fresh enough to follow. Hope stirs inside your chest. You continue walking, staying behind the hunters. The landscape shifts again as you cross through a scattered forest of thin trees. Their branches are bare, rattling lightly in the wind. As sunlight filters through them, the ground glitters with frost. Everything feels still except for the sound of your breathing and the rhythmic crunch beneath your feet. One intriguing idea from several anthropologists suggests that carrying fire allowed early humans to cross rivers and ridges more safely, enabling them to travel farther than most predators dared. Holding the ember bundle now, you feel safer stepping into unknown terrain. The prints lead your group along a forested slope where the land dips sharply downward. A distant thump echoes through the trees. You freeze. Another thump follows, deeper and heavier. You look to the hunters for guidance. They tilt their heads, listening intently. The sound repeats. A dull, rhythmic thud. Something large is moving. You crouch behind a tree, keeping the ember bundle close. The hunters slowly inch forward, gripping their spears. A moment later, a massive shape emerges in the distance. A large, bison-like creature plows through frost-covered grass, its breath rising in thick clouds. Its dark fur ripples with every step. It is searching for food, unaware of your group. You remain still. The creature could provide days of nourishment, but the danger is great. The hunters exchange glances. They shake their heads. Winter has made the animal too strong and too desperate. Attacking it would risk injury, perhaps death. Instead, your group retreats quietly, stepping backward until the creature disappears from sight. You exhale slowly, feeling tension melt from your shoulders. Survival sometimes means choosing patience over bravery. The fire will help you endure until a safer opportunity appears. As the morning turns into afternoon, you continue your migration. The land begins to flatten, and distant hills soften into gentle slopes. The wind loses some of its bite. You reach an open stretch of grassland where pockets of sunlight warm your feet. The change in temperature brings relief to your skin. At last you pause near a cluster of large stones that form a partial circle. The stones stand upright, as if pushed into place by ancient forces. Their surfaces are darkened by age. This spot feels sheltered, a perfect place to rest and perhaps eat. You kneel and unwrap your ember bundle. The ember glows weakly, but it is still alive. You place it carefully in a small nest of sticks and blow gently. A thin wisp of smoke rises. With steady breaths, the ember grows, touching the smallest twigs. Flames bloom in delicate spirals, rising with a soft hiss. Your group gathers around the new fire. Their shoulders drop as warmth spreads. Some sit cross-legged, others kneel. A few lie back and rest against the stones. One interpretation often mentioned by field researchers suggests that migration routes taken by early humans were shaped partly by the need to find places where fire could be sheltered from wind. Watching the flames ignite in this stone circle, you understand how landscape and fire work together. You warm a few tubers and berries again. The scent of heated plants rises, calming your stomach. But as you prepare the food, your eyes drift to the stones behind you. Their tall shapes create a barrier from the wind. They also cast shifting shadows that sway gently with the flickering firelight. The movement of the shadows fascinates you. They seem to mimic running herds, rising predators, bending trees, even changing moods. You watch the patterns ripple and pulse across the stones. A view sometimes suggested by cognitive scientists proposes that firelight may have encouraged early humans to imagine movement, memory, and meaning in shifting shadows, fueling symbolic thought. Watching the shadows now, you can feel the beginnings of imagination stirring again, just as it did in the cave. As the fire warms your hands, one of the hunters begins to mimic an animal's gait. Their footsteps fall in uneven beats, imitating the heavy, bison-like creature you encountered. The group reacts with quiet amusement. Someone else joins in, mimicking the rustle of grass under small hooves. A child taps a stone lightly, adding rhythm. You smile. Even without formal language, your group is learning to communicate with more nuance. Fire encourages you to slow down, to observe, to share moments that would otherwise vanish into darkness. Later, as the sun dips low, you tend the fire carefully. You add thicker branches that will burn longer into the evening. The flames cast a warm circle across the grass, inviting calm. The group relaxes. The last light of day fades. The wind softens into a gentle murmur. You lift your gaze to the sky. The first stars appear, trembling above the darkening horizon. Their cold light contrasts sharply with the warmth around you. You wrap your arms around your knees and lean closer to the fire. Migration continues tomorrow. New challenges will rise. Winter is far from over. But for tonight, fire keeps the cold at a respectful distance. It keeps the group together in a bubble of warmth and shared breath. It gives the night a softer edge. You close your eyes, letting the fire's glow seep into your thoughts. Every journey feels different now. Every step feels guided. The horizon stretches endlessly ahead, but you are no longer wandering blindly. Fire lights the path. The morning greets you with a cold so sharp it feels carved from stone. Frost blankets the grass around your sleeping place, shimmering in the faint early light. You rise slowly, joints stiff but spirit steady. The fire from last night has faded into a bed of glowing embers. You crouch beside them and gently brush away ash, revealing the red core pulsing gently like the last heartbeat of the night. With careful hands you add a few dried twigs. Smoke rises first, thin and shy. Then the fire awakens, stretching upward in quiet orange curls. Your group gathers around the warmth. Some rub their hands together, sighing softly as sensation returns to numb fingers. Others quietly chew bits of leftover food or adjust the furs wrapped around their shoulders. The flames light their faces with a sleepy gold, pulling them into wakefulness. Beyond the circle, the world still clings to winter's grip, but inside the glow you feel space to breathe. Once the fire stabilizes, you begin preparing the ember bundle for travel. You wrap a glowing coal inside layers of bark and dried grass, tucking it carefully against your body. This now familiar ritual reminds you that every journey depends on holding fire close. Without it, winter would swallow your group whole. You begin walking as the sun climbs higher. Today brings a steady climb up a long ridge, its slope layered with stones and dry soil. The air tastes colder here, and the wind presses harder against your face. You adjust your grip on the ember bundle and steady your breath. Each step requires more strength, more balance. But as you climb, something catches your eye. A thin plume of steam drifting from a crack between two large boulders. You approach cautiously and touch the stone. It is warm, warmer than the air around it. Beneath the surface lies some hidden pocket of heat. A memory comes to you of how your ancestors sometimes slept near sun-warmed rocks to keep the night's chill away. One researcher's intriguing proposal suggests that early humans occasionally sought out naturally heated stones or shallow geothermal pockets to support survival. Touching this warm surface now, you feel the possibility clearly. The land itself can help you endure. You linger only a moment, then continue following your group up the ridge. As you climb higher, the wind whistles between the rocks, carrying the faint scent of distant snow. Your skin prickles at the cold, but the ember bundle warms your hands with a subtle glow that steadies your steps. At the ridge top, the hunters stop abruptly. One raises a hand for silence. You follow their gaze and see a distant herd in the valley below. They move slowly, their breath drifting like white smoke into the morning air. The animals look wary but not starving, a promising sign. The hunters discuss silently through gestures. They consider the angle of the slope, the wind direction, the distance. But the terrain is risky. The valley is wide and open, giving the animals a clear escape path. The group decides against the chase for now. Survival sometimes demands restraint, even when hunger tugs at your belly. You turn toward the forest ahead. Its trees stand tall, their bare branches reaching skyward. The forest feels different today. The air carries the scent of sap and bark. The ground is littered with fallen twigs and damp leaves. As you walk into the shadows, you sense the world growing quieter. The wind softens. The cold becomes less biting. You feel sheltered beneath the canopy. Inside the forest, you stumble upon a remarkable sight. A fallen tree lies across a patch of bare soil, its trunk split open by age. The inner wood is dry and brittle. When you touch it, a piece breaks away easily. The fragment is light, almost hollow. You examine it curiously. If placed near fire, this wood might smolder gently or ignite faster than heavier logs. You collect a few pieces and carry them with care. Nearby, one member of the group kneels beside a cluster of stones. They choose a smooth, flat piece and begin scraping it against a shard of harder rock. Sparks do not appear, but small flakes break away, shaping